Harrison, thank you so much for joining us. And this topic, racism, a lot of times parents have good intentions, but they don't know what to say all of the time and even where to start. You have 5 points that you say that these are a good starting point. And the first one is to begin early. So how early should parents begin this dialogue?
Thank you so much. So, literally in the womb is where this dialogue starts. And I know that sounds crazy because babies in the womb, you think don't hear dialogue, but we know that playing different types of music from different ethnic cultures, from different racial backgrounds, makes a difference. And then actually having a conversation about racism, kids can start to understand this around 4 and 5 years old. And that conversation is about people being treated fairly and people being treated unfairly. And this is how we respond in those situations.
So this has just been a part of the conversation. One of your other points is to prepare yourself. And what do you mean when you say, to prepare yourself?
Do some research. The easiest way when children are younger is to find resources, and there are tons all over the internet. If you Google anti-racism resources for kids, you'll actually find resources that are age-based because you do want to be age appropriate. But I want you to practice because this is a difficult conversation. And so you want to come into this conversation with your child with confidence. And we do that by preparing ourselves.
So when you are having this discussion with your children at whatever age that they are, it's important to ask them, you say it's important to ask them their opinion.
I think a lot of times as parents, we approach conversations with our children, no matter the age, with this vertical dynamic. Like, I'm the expert and I'm going to teach you about racism today. And when we leave here, you'll do what I say and it will be great. And so the asking the question and the listening is about what have your experiences been? What are your thoughts on racism based on how you've been treated or how you've seen people that you care about, how you've seen your friends be treated, and developing that compassion and empathy through their own experiences to then drive the motivation for anti-racism.
Right, and definitely as this conversation continues, you also talk about being direct with kids. When you're talking about being direct, sometimes people might confuse that with keeping it simple. Mm-hmm. Or is that the same?
Our kids can tell when we're fudging. And so it goes back to what we said earlier, which is be prepared, because part of what's difficult about talking about racism is that we haven't necessarily been given the words to talk about racism. Figure out if you want to talk about racism against people of color, or if you want to talk about racism against Black people. This is the history of racism in this country. This is what racism looks like today in this country. This is the commitment that we as a family and people make against anti-racism. And this is how we honor that commitment. Just very direct words. And so to your point, yes, simple, although it's clearly very complicated.
Final point is show them the way. That sounds pretty easy, but maybe easier said than done.
Easier said than done is exactly right. But what I'm encouraging here is do as I do, because our children see what we're doing and they pick that up, and that becomes a part of who they are, and that becomes a part of what they do. And so by doing, you're actually passively teaching your children about anti-racism. And so often we think like this is work for adults, but this is work for every age group. And so if you're doing some type of advocacy, if you're donating money, if you're intentionally diversifying your social circle, be out loud and proud about that anti-racism work with your kids, because then they can do as you do and as you say. I know that racism can be scary, but we can literally change the world, one adult through one child at a time, just by starting early, being direct, and giving our kids resources for how they can start practicing anti-racism from the time they come out of the womb. So I challenge us to do it because I know we can.
I'm going to take that challenge. I love all of this advice. Doctor, thank you so much.